What we do is we create like the Ferrari of socks, right? Like, is Rob just gonna like eventually grow up and get a real job? It's like Rob can hire your kids now.
You bootstrap the company all the way to 10 million.
I woke up every morning for 10 years knowing exactly what I wanted to work on, exactly where I needed to get better, and exactly where I wanted my life to go, and that went away overnight. Like, a vision should be something that's just like almost never achievable and like so grand it gives you this motivation to chase it. If we did that, then we're trillionaires. I told someone that I got started legal notice, and they're like, oh, you're not even a real business unless you get sued. In the first few years of your business is just focus on solving that simple problem. Don't lose focus and just like relentlessly attack.
Well, we'll just like wait 6 months, whatever. No, it's like, how can we do it in 2 weeks? And I think that's so important to have.
The only true test of intelligence is if you get what you want out of life.
Tell me more about your psychological audit with Jack Skeen. Okay, welcome back to the podcast. So I'm going to be starting this one a bit differently today. We are going to be doing a quick vlog. So I got to drop my company vehicle off of the mechanic. We're going to be going there, going to be getting some work done, hitting the gym, and I'll just take you along with me. So these past few days, I've like literally just been working the entire time. I've been like staying home here, just like optimizing my space and working like 10, 12 hours a day. So I just got back from a trip to Mexico, Miami, and San Francisco, did some podcasts, met with some mentors, and then it was also like my first time kind of running my business remotely, which was a fucking amazing experience. Like, I was literally in Mexico sitting at the beach, and then I just had my guy doing work. I was like making money passively. I guess not necessarily passively, like I don't even like that word either, but it was like I had my team working in Victoria here where the company's based, and then I was in Mexico working remotely. Anyways, we're gonna be going to the mechanic, getting my company vehicle fixed, dropping that off, getting some work done, going to the gym, and then really just getting a bunch of work done today. I kind of went through like my fun phase with the trip, so we're really just locked in right now. And then after that, you'll see the podcast with me and Rob Fraser, which was such a pleasure to record. Like, one of the best podcasts I've done, and learn about his story and a ton of stuff that like I can even apply to my business, even though I'm in like a way different industry. So there's 2 hours of that, and I'm sure you're gonna love it. All right, before we go, this right here has been one of the best investments of my life. Like, might even be the best $200 I've ever spent. Just this huge whiteboard right here from Amazon. But I don't know what it is. I just thought of my best ideas while using it. And maybe it's like having the big space that expands your mind or something. Okay, it's actually kind of a nice day out today in Canada, but it still feels so cold knowing I was just in like Miami and Mexico for a month. Also, got the yard signs here. Super proud of these. The gold member signs. Biggest flex of my life. Canine Car Care gold member. All right, now let's head to the mechanic. Hop in the fucking company van. So tomorrow I've actually got something really exciting. I've been hosting these events in my city for young entrepreneurs. If you're in Victoria, by the way, it's called Victoria Builds. Go check it out. But we're hosting our biggest event yet tomorrow. There's gonna be, I think, just under 50 people, which I'm really excited about. And I'm just making the questions for the event right now. So basically, what we do is like, it starts off, everyone's in tables of 5, like we rotate around, talk to each other, and then for the next 30 minutes of the event, we all like sit in our tables, then like discuss these questions, kind of bounce ideas off each other. And we did that last time and it was super fun. So if you're in Victoria, come attend the event. All right, this has been like my typical afternoon for the past few days. Got the double shot of espresso right here, and then got like a pound of ground beef and rice. Peak life. Since I've started this work phase this past week, I've just been in my house like 10, 12 hours a day, and going for like a 30-minute walk each day has been pretty much my only time outside. But it's really nice because usually I just don't bring my phone, and then I find my mind naturally just thinks about business and like thinks about new ideas. So I always come up with my best ideas when I'm out for a walk, and it's like, it's impossible to go for a walk with no phone and then come back and feel worse. So yeah, this has been one of the best habits for me for a while. I got some new ads up and I've spent maybe $40, $50 from them, and I made my first sale here about $1,000, or just under 1,000 actually, which I am pretty happy with. So Rob, you've built Outway into an 8-figure brand, and on this podcast, I'm sure we're going to get a lot more into like the strategies and the tactics you've used, but I really want to start this off with something I read from one of your articles yesterday. My entire childhood can be summed up as almost good enough to be part of the club, almost talented enough to make the sports team, almost cool enough to be in the popular kids group, on the cusp, but never accepted. This creates a lone wolf mentality, a watch me attitude, and that drove me hard for 17 years. Tell me a bit more about that and like how all of that shaped you.
In reflection, a lot of why we do the things that we do and who we are today can be traced back to some part of your childhood. And it's been some of the kind of like reflection that I've been doing lately of like, to take me back further, I had a 10-year career as a professional cyclist. I was 5 times on the Canadian national team. Then after that, I've now done a 10-year career in entrepreneurship, running Outway and doing a few other things. I got to a point of like, why do I do what I do? Just some natural questions of like, like almost 20 years or 20 years in high performance over 2 careers is like, what's driving me? And how do you keep that drive sustained over another 20, 30, 40 years? And that article was really just me attempting to look into some of the things that were those driving factors. And one of the biggest one was just this recurring theme throughout my childhood where, like you mentioned, and like I wrote, I was always on the cusp of like being included. I always had this ambition. I always wanted to be on the sports team. I always wanted to be in the group of kids that looked like they had it all going for them. And I think worse than just not being a part, I was like so close that I could taste it. So like always on the cusp. I remember like some of the school teams, like the basketball team or the track and field team, it would be like, I would be like the last one cut. And I don't know about how it is when you're going through school, but mine, they would post the like who made the team on like a piece of paper outside the gym. And it would show like alternates or like just missed it. Usually it'd be like, here's 2 people that like just missed the cut, but if anyone drops out, they're in. I was always on the alternates or like just missed. And so it was like, it built this kind of mentality and just this chip on my shoulder. I was like, man, when I find my thing, I'm just going to like go as deep as I can, as hard as I can at it. And that was initially cycling. And I found that it was permissionless, right? So I didn't need to make a team to ride a bike, and I didn't need to be on some sort of, or in some sort of club or have permission to show up to a bike race and just try downhill racing. And so I did it and got better at it and just took it as far as I could. And then the same thing is true of entrepreneurship. It's permissionless. You don't need anyone's approval to start. That's the most liberating and high agency thing about entrepreneurship is like you can just do things and you can just do it. So yeah, it was just a way of me articulating like that drove me for a long time. But I think there's also a part of that article and story is like those types of things can't be the fuel forever, and there needs to be you need to figure out what the mentality or the driving factor can be for prolonged success. Because I think like, yeah, a chip on your shoulder takes you pretty far, but at a certain point it can burn you out as well. Like, I think it's a good way to start and get success is to prove someone wrong or prove to yourself. But I think a good way to sustain success is to do it because you want to do it, or you're fulfilling some greater purpose, or, ultimately your life's vision or mission in that sense.
What's crazy is I found I was pretty much the exact same way during school. And I remember vividly, like, I was on that list of, like, the few people that just made the team. And yeah, I definitely always had that feeling that it was like I was almost there, but never quite good enough. And I think that was one of those things that really gave me this desire to not only like prove other people wrong, but more prove to myself that like there's something I can be successful at. Like I can make a name for myself. I can be somebody in some way. And I think that was definitely a huge driving factor for me when I first started. So where do you think your ambition came from?
I don't know, like, I think it'd be easy to say that like, oh, I taught myself and like I can take full credit for the ambition I have.
Yeah.
I think I was born with it. I think like, I don't think we can as humans take a ton of credit for our makeup, like our genetics, where like where we were born, our parents, our kind of like born privileges, you could call it. I'm not a huge fan of the word privilege, but for lack of a better term, the advantages that we might be born into. And I mean, like I just read this book called Free Will by Sam Harris, and it's like some people are born in the sunshine, some people are born in hurricanes, right? And that's just a fact. And so you can't be take credit for being born in the sunshine, which I would really consider myself kind of in that bucket. Um, so I don't know. I think like the ambition, I think I was born with, but what I will take credit for is harnessing it and not giving up. So like, I don't necessarily think I can like take credit for, like just my mentality in that sense, but I can take credit for the effort that goes into it. And I think my career has been defined by like one word, is resilience. So never quite being the best at anything. I don't think I'm the smartest. I don't think I'm the best business operator there is. I don't think I was the best athlete, but I definitely was the best at not quitting and continuing to go. And, we'll probably get into it, but like through my 10-year business career, there's been a lot of times where there would have been an opportunity to quit or been severely challenged in multiple different ways, whether it was legal or co-founder or all these different aspects. And so I'm like a cockroach, like you just can't kill me. That's like I'm unkillable is kind of my brand, is like I will work hard, but and I will be as educated and wise as I can, but you won't kill me. Like I wouldn't want to compete with me personally.
I love that. And what do you think are some of your other natural strengths when it comes to business?
I wouldn't say I'm like I'd say that this strength is because I had to build this strength. I've got an ability to take abstract concepts or things that are somewhat complicated to learn, distill them down and articulate them quite clearly. And I think that's really helpful when you're trying to rally a team or just build a business in general. It's all about your communication and how you can get your ideas out into the world and then get other people to help you build those. And so I think I've always been good at just leadership in that sense, getting people to articulating the vision, what I want to do, and then getting people to join me, because none of what I've done, especially in business, is just all on my back. It's been the people that have helped me do it, our employees, our partners, our contractors, mentors, everyone in my circle is helps accomplish what we're seeing in the world, and particularly around Outway. And I think my skill is just to be able to cultivate that. And I think it comes down to just articulating a pretty clear vision. And then from there, articulating what needs to happen to get done and trying to just go out to the world, collect all those dots, connect them, and then paint the path forward the best I can.
Okay, so for anybody who doesn't know, what made you want to start the business in the first place? Like, what was the first thing that led you to running a sock business?
So like I said, I had the kind of 10-year career as a cyclist. I say professional cyclist, but like I was a downhill mountain bike racer. I was on the national team. I raced in the highest division you could race in the world. But the pay is like not great. It's like between dismal and non-existent for the most part. Not an Olympic designated sport, the one I did. I raced the downhill ski equivalent, but on a bike. So time trial style, top of the mountain to the bottom, quite dangerous, high speeds. I had sponsors. I did have kind of performance pay contracts, but there wasn't a lot of money in it. And so although I was physically able and still competitive, I had to walk away and figure out what I want to do with my life. I went through a bit of an identity crisis. And so I was like, 10 years of, hi, my name's Rob, I'm a professional mountain bike racer, to like, hi, my name's Rob, I don't really know what I'm doing. I don't know like who I am and how I should show up in the world. Because if you think about it, we all have childhood dreams. I kind of like got mine, and was doing it. So I want to be a professional athlete. Okay, cool. I'm like doing that. I'm spending all my summers traveling around the world, racing bikes at the highest level. I was ranked in 2011 number 1 in Canada. When I retired, number 2 in Canada in the national series. And so like I was on most objective measures living my dream, although like the lifestyle wasn't exactly correlated to like the kind of like result success you would see in terms of just pay and ability to kind of like support myself. So yeah, I went through this period where I was like, I woke up every morning for 10 years knowing exactly what I wanted to work on, exactly where I needed to get better, and exactly where I wanted my life to go, and that went away overnight. And so this 2-year period where I was trying to rediscover that, I thought maybe it would be a career in the sport industry. So I went to Camosun College for sport management. I got a job at the Canadian Sport Institute in the talent development department, working with the sports school, doing on paper what you would think a former athlete would want to do, help the next generation of athletes. But it was in this bureaucratic sort of government-led sport organization, and I, had gone and dropped out of school many times while cycling, and school was just still not my thing. So I was like, this can't be it. Like, this is the path that makes sense on paper, that makes sense logically. My parents are happy with, but I'm feeling dead inside. And so I don't remember how, but I was like, I came across the book, The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, and I was walking around Cedar Hill Golf Course listening to the audiobook, and it just sparked this idea in me. I was like, oh, entrepreneurship sounds like the sport of business to me. I was like, that's how I framed it. I was like, I'm an athlete. I take an athlete mentality to everything I do. Sport is my reference on how like a framework for life in the world. I was like, oh, the sport of business. This seems like something I could compete in, and I can just do it, and I don't need to make a team. And so I just started kind of like messing around in my head, like, okay, if I started a business, what would it be? I looked at the brands I liked. I loved like the athlete marketing from Red Bull. I loved the aesthetic of Lululemon and kind of the activewear space. And socks were a big part of cycling culture. And so I was like, okay, if I had to kind of like triangulate all those things, I think there's an opportunity to create like a yoga pant for the foot. So an all-day activewear sock that had wonderful design, and we could advertise it through athlete marketing. That was the simple idea. Took $1,000 from my student loans, taught myself how to design, designed 7 socks, bought the collection, and then went to school with a Tupperware container and just sold them hand to hand. And then we ended up doing $350,000 in our first year just doing that. And I didn't expect it to work. I like had the vision, I had the idea, I took action, I wanted it to work. But like beyond that, I had no business plan, no real business even starting it. I wasn't in a business program. Like no one would have described me as like uh like smart enough to run a business, maybe is the right word, but like I wasn't studious, like I was a former athlete. So I didn't have like a lot of things that would have pointed to Rob's going to start a business. And so when I did, I think a lot of people were like, okay, like good luck selling socks, but I guess that watch me attitude, like still doing it 10 years later. So it's working out.
Yeah, what did like the first year or so look like of you starting the business?
Well, I was still in school. So I went into my second year, and so like mentality wise, like I had student loans, I had no responsibilities. I didn't have kids. I didn't there's literally nothing but time. Right. And like, that's what I try to say. Like, I think I've spoken in one of your UVic classes. Like I try to say, it's um, like when you're a student or when you're young, it's like there's really no responsibility. Like you really have no pressure. No one expects anything from you yet. So I was like, great. I was in a 4-year program. I've got 3 more years just to like figure this out, because my only expectation is to go to school, and I've got student loans to like cover my expenses. So like school's not that hard, right? Like it doesn't take that much time when you really think about it. And I was in a pretty basic program. Maybe if you're in like med school or something, it's like pretty hard. But I was like in sport management at Wilson College. Like, come on. So, so yeah, I was just like, I gave myself the timeline. I gave myself the freedom to fail. I didn't really care, because I just don't really care if I try something hard and it doesn't work out. And people like, what's the worst that's gonna happen? People say like, oh, look at you fail. It's like, at least I tried. So the first year though, it just looked just like that. I got the socks. Like it was ugly. They if you look back on the designs, they're shit. Like the product was pretty good, but like I'm very much a fan of just like good, better than great, and just like get going and velocity, like fast, fast, fast. I got the first run. So I had the idea on September 4th, 2016. I had my first product by before Halloween, so October like 20th. So like really fast. And that was me learning how to design, finding a manufacturer, actually sourcing it, sampling, like pretty insane timeline. I took it to school, sold out of the first batch within the first week, took all the profits, reinvested them, and bought 3 times, 4 times as many pairs. Then I was like, okay, who do I know? How do I, what's a market I have access to outside of school? I was like, okay, I know the cycling community. Can I set up tents at the local cycling races that are happening every weekend? Did that, sold them there, and just kind of like spun up that little thing. Every time I was like, okay, that worked. Who else do I know that I could help me do something? Built a little Shopify store. And it just kind of like spun up from there. It was really just chasing curiosity, like serendipitous opportunities through just like meeting people and leveraging my network to help me get ahead. I think it's like my very, I struggle to say the word advice, but like the thing that I think is the most important when starting at your business, especially your first business, is one, just like solving your own problem. Like if you are trying to solve a problem that you have no experience in, business is hard enough. If you're also trying to guess at what problem to solve, like it's a near impossible task. So I was like, I want a better pair of socks that I can wear to school, work, and to the gym that look great and feel great. It's like, I'm going to solve that problem. And then the reality that like, I'm not that unique, in a world of 8 billion or however many billion people there are, there's probably millions of people that have my exact problem. So I'm just going to go do that. And so it was like this idea of like, I'm just going to solve my own problem, sell to myself, basically, to people that like I'm going to market how I would want to be marketed to. And then what advantages do I have based on my past experience that I can tap into? I had an athlete network. I knew professional athletes, so I could get them to be ambassadors. I knew how to get access to these events that were other people probably wouldn't be able to get a table at. So I was like, I'm going to use my advantages where I maybe don't have the business degree, which would be maybe someone else's advantage. I'm going to use these ones and just like relentlessly pursued those.
Yeah, that's a really good point because you don't like you understand yourself way more than you understand anybody else. And then you can speak to your exact problems, like your exact pain points, your exact desires. And like you were saying, it's just so much easier to market to yourself because you know yourself.
Yeah, and I mean, eventually, then you grow and scale and get data, and you can kind of triangulate and figure out all the ideas of like what other problems you could solve. Like, there's a point in business where you will get enough experience where you might have some insights that aren't direct problems you deal with, but you meet someone that has dealt with them, or you've interacted with people. So like, that's really kind of my thought on just your initial business for sure, and certainly in the first few years of your business is just focus on solving that simple problem. Don't lose focus and just like relentlessly attack it. A lot of people like the kind of like current business culture, it's changing a little bit maybe, is just like you need to have this massive success out of the gate. It's just like not true. So many businesses started when I did. Like when you kind of start your business, I'm sure you're experiencing this now with like your your community you're building, the Victoria Builds community, and you're meeting all these founders doing things. Just keep a note of who's still around in 10 years. So like that's the kind of metric of success. It's not revenue. It's not how much hype you get, how many Instagram followers you have. It's like who's still around in 10 years. Who's around 1 year, but like 1 year they can probably just tough it out. 2, maybe they drop off. So like what I'm really getting at is when I started, there was a cohort of other companies similar to mine and people I knew. None of them are around. None of them are around. Maybe one. I don't even think so. And so like that goes back to the cockroach thing. Is like I've always just optimized for like just do the stuff that works and like stay focused, stay true to the vision, fulfill the consumer promise, and like forget the hype, and like it's just not that important. Like, what's cool? Staying in business. And the truth is that like building a really good business that pays you well and hires people and people love, it just takes time. Like these businesses that rocket ship up, they usually rocket ship down too.
That's a great point. And I really want to go back to what you're saying. So you came up with your idea, I think you said September 3rd, and then before Halloween, you already had your first samples. So walk me through that process.
Yeah, I mean, I just relentless again. I would send 100 emails a night for different manufacturers, and I knew what I wanted. I was like, like the most important thing with this is like I had negotiated all my past sponsorship contracts. So I had a lot of experience kind of like negotiating and getting things maybe I didn't quite deserve, and wanted to deserve, and by doing just kind of like marketing myself basically. Maybe deserve's not the right word. It's just like, getting a great deal, where maybe you wouldn't necessarily get that kind of deal just by, knowing where the leverage points are and how to negotiate. But, so I would send all these manufacturers, just emails being like, here's what I want. But I wouldn't just say like, I'm a new business. Can you help me out? I'd be like, hey, I'm building the world's biggest sock company. Like we're going to be selling millions of pairs in no time. And I want to work with you. Like I'm messaging 100 people. I want samples. I want to meet these deadlines. I want these payment terms. Like, let me know if you want to work with me. So I wasn't like going out there and being like, can you please help me? I was being like, yo, if you help me, I'll help you because I'm going to build a big sock company. And it was that belief. And honestly, the person that bet on us, we're still in partnership with. So those very first samples are still our biggest factory today. And we are doing millions of pairs a year with them. So like it worked out, right? And like, I didn't know for sure, but I had that ambition, and that's what partnerships are. It's like, you bet on me, I'll bet on you. But when you're kind of reaching out in those early days, you don't want to be cocky, but you want to be confident. You want to be just like projecting into the world with what you want the future to look like, right? Like manifesting in some sort of way, whether you believe it or not. It's like, that's how you need to approach these relationships, because like these factories get emails all the time, right? Everyone's trying to start an apparel company or this XYZ company, and they're running the calculus of like, do we make line space? Do we make machine space and labor space for you if you're never going to come back or you're not even going to pay us? It's like, how do you separate yourself from the pack is like the main thing. So that process looked like hundreds of emails, finding the partner, and then just being relentless with timelines and quality. Is like, here's the sock I want to make. Here's the designs. I need them in 2 weeks. Like they're like, no, it's usually like 6 months. I'm like, how do we make it 2 weeks? Like it's got to be a solvable problem. And just this constant being like, why? Every time you get an answer of like, can't be done, it's like, why? Explain it to me. The laws of physics don't dictate that this needs to take 6 months. So like, tell me why it can't be 2 weeks. And we got it down to 2 weeks.
Yeah, I love that mindset. And I think speaking to so many more successful entrepreneurs on this podcast, that's one of the biggest commonalities I've noticed. Like that mindset, chase like constantly chasing speed and thinking like, how can we make this work rather than like, oh, this can't be done. Well, we'll just like wait 6 months, whatever. No, it's like, how can we do it in 2 weeks? And I think that's so important to have. Do you think that was also something that you were born with?
I think I learned it. I just learned I'm just impatient by nature, which like in other areas of my life like is not a good thing. It's like the disease of rushing. But in business is really good. Um, so I don't know. I think again I was just born with that, or it was part of that angst that I had of just like maybe just being on the cusp. It's like when I get my thing, I'm just gonna hold it and I'm gonna like just run full speed. So I've I think a lot of the great things that make you an exceptional entrepreneur in the early days can work against you at scale though. So like you do need to learn to be patient, especially if you're managing people or if you're dealing with larger timelines in terms of just like multi-location warehousing or production quality concerns. Like you can't rush everything, but in the early days, like you should just rush everything and just be as fast as humanly possible because like you need reps, right? Shots on net. It'd be maybe more like if you're practicing, which I'd say is like the first few years of your business, you just want to be taking shot, right? But if it's like the world champion finals, like you want to make sure that shot counts, right? You're not just going to shoot willy nilly. So it's like, I'd say like when you're 10 years in, you got a big moment, you maybe not want to rush. But like when you're in your first year, you want to rush and just get, just shots on net, reps, feedback from the consumer, product on feet, and just make it better, better, better. And like a lot of young entrepreneurs are like, well, if I rush it and I get a first product out, people are going to remember that it's not great. No one remembers. No one cares. Like think like we don't remember what I bought yesterday, right? Like, and people are way more forgiving. Like if I look back to the stuff we did even a year ago, it's somewhat some of it I'd be like, that is not us, right? You just evolve, you get better. And again, to the point of there's 8 billion people in the world, it's like there's always more customers. There's always people that will try you again. It's just like stop being so precious and just like move fast.
Yeah, like people don't care about you. They care about what you can do for them.
Exactly. Yeah. And they don't, and like, if you think about your own personality, your own, like yourself, it's like people only think about themselves, right? I'm not thinking about like, like what that brand did yesterday or if their social media post was like off brand. Like who gives a shit, and like who cares? Just keep moving forward. Like it's just it's so funny to see, and I get it. Like I empathize. Like I'm 10 years experience and like it's easy for me to say this now, and when I see a young entrepreneur making these mistakes, I try to be empathetic. I try to share stories though, but I have another belief that like unfortunately most entrepreneurs, like again what makes them great is they're kind of like horse blinders on, earmuffs on, like I'm just like I'm built different, whatever happened to you is not going to happen to me. And so I'm a big believer that like most people just have to touch the stove or run into the wall and then they'll learn the lesson. But it's not going to stop me from trying to like write long form to be like, here's the lessons, try and absorb these, try to avoid these potholes. Like I believe that there's no replicable path to success. So my way to build a business is different than our friend Andrew's way. It's different than your way. But what is true is on all of those paths, there's very similar potholes. These are the common mistakes that everyone makes, and you can avoid those if you listen.
And that, okay, so I want to hear more about what you're saying before about taking as many shots as possible during the first few years and just experimenting as much as possible. What do you think were some examples and some some of the exact things that you did when you were first starting out to experiment, like maybe some that succeeded or some that failed?
It's funny, like 10 years in, it's like the initial idea, the very initial thing we did is the thing that's still working, and almost everything else we've tried is like there's some things that have worked since, but most of the side projects or diversions are all killed right now. The underwear is a good example. So like, yeah, it's like the initial ambition wasn't just to build a sock company, and it's still not. I just don't think we'll talk about focus maybe later. I just don't think we've maximized the current opportunity, and so why would you move on? But yeah, the initial idea was like let's build an apparel business. So like naturally socks, underwear. Okay, let's do that. And it was like by most objective metrics successful. The product was great. It made revenue, but it just diverted our focus and took our eye off the ball from the main thing that was working. And it stretched us too thin. So that'd be like one thing is like product expansion too early. So for example, like on that point, socks are a $60 billion market globally. Most of that market is in North America. And within that market where we kind of operate, athletic socks is the biggest and fastest growing part of that market. And it's the most interesting and has the best margin. And so like when you look at like billions of dollars in opportunity and you're doing, but way back then, like maybe $1 million in sales, you're like, have I maximized the opportunity here? Like why am I even trying underwear right now? I think there's like different ways to approach that too. Like maybe there's a complementary product that doesn't divert your focus, that increases your average order value, but like that is easier said than done. And so I always default back to like, have we maximized the current opportunity to the best of our ability before we start to add on different layers? Other things we tried, like just different sales channels. Like we got into wholesale a bit too early. We do it more now at scale, but we wound that back. Just events, e-commerce, all these different ways you could sell, different countries you can go into. Like there's so many different things that you can try as a young entrepreneur. Like there's like market expansion, product expansion, sales channel expansion, even separate business lines. One thing we did do early on that has stuck and was actually really beneficial was building a side business called Custom Lab. And so Custom Lab is a sub brand of Outway that exists solely to create socks for other people, for other brands, corporations, events, promotional needs. So someone would come to us, like how it really, the real story of how that business started, again, was serendipity. I was sitting in class and I just started Outway, and I got an email from an old sponsor I had, Muscle Milk, and she was like, hey, we're running a promotional event and I thought it'd be cool to give away Muscle Milk socks. Like I see you started a sock company. Can we do 300 pairs of promotional socks? I was like, I think so. Like I never thought about it. So I was like in class and I designed the sock for her. I sent it to her and she's like, great, I'll take 300. And I was like, okay. So I invoiced her and I was like, that was way more money and way easier than selling one pair at a time. I just sold 300 pairs and she paid me up front and I haven't even made them yet. I was like, this is awesome. So that kind of like started this little seed of an idea of like, can we just start a promotional sock business on the side? And that ended up being our way to finance our growth because we bootstrapped ourselves to 10 million in total revenue off of that $1,000 investment. So like that's hard to do in an inventory business where like they typically suck cash flow as you grow because you have to buy more stock, sell it, pay for advertising before you get cash. But the custom sock business, Custom Lab, everything was pre-order based. People would pay us in advance and then we would have net terms on our manufacturing. So we'd be able to invest that cash in the Outway side and kind of grow both businesses simultaneously. So it's kind of like a story of two tales of like, you want to experiment with diverting focus sometimes because it could work out, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you're quick to kill things that are not working or benefiting you.
Yeah, so I think what you did by building Custom Lab and Outweigh at the same time, I think some people might hear that and they might take that as like, oh yeah, when I'm first starting out, I can build two businesses at once, and I feel like that's like pretty bad advice for 99% of people or a lot of people, especially when they're first starting out. But then it definitely did work really well for you. So when do you think it's right for a young entrepreneur or a starting entrepreneur to divert focus? And when do you think it's wrong?
I think in this case, like both of those business fell directly in our circle of competence and excellence and genius even. So like Custom Lab and Outway leverage all of the same skill sets and the entirely same supply chain. The only difference is the end consumer and the way it's marketed. So like it's two separate businesses, yes, because they serve different consumers and needs, but it's the same business in the very operational sense. It didn't require anything new. If you even like starting an underwear line is harder than running those two businesses because it's entirely new supply chain. It's now taking a unisex product like socks to a gendered product like underwear. We have to sell it to, there's a difference between the men's and women's underwear, for example. So it has the second order consequence of like, how do you reconfigure your website to now be gendered where it was traditionally unisex? So that's a whole other problem. Um, so I'd say like when it's probably a good idea is when it's just really leveraging the same skill sets, the exact same thing. It's like you're just selling it to a different audience. It'd be no different than if like you're already writing a newsletter, and you just took that newsletter and you'd put a different sort of angle on it to sell directly to a consumer or to a business. Like you're already doing the work. All the infrastructure's there. You're just taking that product and putting it in two different directions with a slightly different marketing or end purpose needed for it. Where it would be a bad idea is if it's like something that's, first of all, outside of your circle of competence, where like if you're building a consumer business and then you have this idea to start a tech company on the side, it's like those are completely unrelated and they're two different skill sets entirely. So it's like maybe someone pulls it off, but like if it's your first business, it's probably a bad idea to try and do both at once because they don't use the same skills, the same team, the same infrastructure. You're quite literally at that point building two separate companies. And even as someone like 10 years in, I've tried to do that and it's really hard, right? It's like really hard unless you had the team, the capital, the resources to really put on those projects. I think both are going to fail, like if you just divert your focus like that. I think early days is just solving your own problem. Like it's just that. I mean, until then, you're not going to have enough data points on yourself to figure out what you're good at. I mean, like the kind of like the necessary ingredients of an entrepreneur is you're kind of good at everything. Like you're a jack of all trades, and then you have to start to get specialized. Like, what are you really good at? Um, and maybe like you get it wrong the first time, and you it's why you see a lot of founders pivot, which I think pivoting's fine versus starting two things at once. Um, but your circle of competence is like you know your problems. What are your skill sets to like fix those problems? In my case, like if I looked at me, I was solving a problem, maybe taking a different layer is like, what is my skill set when it comes to running a business? At that time, it was like communicating and marketing. Like I wasn't a tech focused person. I wasn't a great like growth marketer. I was a great like brand marketer. I was a great athlete marketer because I understood like I was an athlete that repped brands. I could reverse engineer that. I was now the brand and I knew how athletes repped products. So I was like, okay, I know how the contracts work. I know how the agreements work. I know how the whole engine marks up or works together. So it's like I don't think like you shouldn't guess at what your circle of kind of competence is. You should just like look to where you've had success in the past and then double down on that.
And so you were saying you bootstrapped the company all the way to 10 million, which is crazy. And I remember I was seeing in one of your interviews that for your first, to get to your first million in the business, you didn't spend any money on ads.
So yeah, it's like because I didn't like I said it was outside of my circle of competence. I had no experience in like and it's to our detriment probably because that was like the golden age of like meta ads like in D2C businesses, but like I also think it's why we're still around because it forced me to focus on like who is our actual consumer and how do we market this in like an ever-changing and durable way. The thing that's always going to be true with the technological advances that are happening is like people go to events and like people run races and like we figured out how to do that and show up there in those spaces. But yeah, I just like it wasn't a virtuous thing. Like it's just a fact. Like I wasn't like I'm not going to spend money on ads, right? Like that's like a bad strategy if you're pretty good at it. But I was just like I don't know how, so I'm going to do this thing over here, which was like ambassador network building and athlete marketing. Um, but I do believe like if you can, it's probably a good strategy in the consumer space. So the book I'm talking is like consumer businesses. It's very different for other businesses. Um, but if you can grow organically or without spending on ads, you're going to build a more durable business because you're actually acquiring customers that want to interact with your brand. When you're using digital advertising, you can do ways to uh, acquire customers that are maybe not the customers that would buy your product initially. You found a way to kind of hack the system a little bit or incentivize them, or you gave them a really good deal, but they're not really the people that are like your real brand advocates and like they're not going to come back. And so like if your only funnel for new customers when you're starting is just through paid advertising, like you're going to have a hard time figuring out who your core consumer is. And you're not going to build that long lifetime value either. And it's just going to be like this game where you constantly burn money until hopefully you figure it out, but maybe you don't.
So what do you think are the best ways to market to create more of that lifetime value?
It depends on the business. So like first I would figure out, does my business have lifetime value? So you with car detailing, like people need to get that done often. So there's lifetime value. So for you, it would be like, uh, I'm sure it would just be like the best possible experience. Like the car is detailed perfectly. Your team was easy to work with. It was seamless. Like that would create lifetime value. So for you, it's probably service quality. For us, it was like the good thing about socks is they wear out quickly. And there's two kind of like interesting things about socks is there's a utility focus and a fashion focus. Right. Whereas most other clothing is pretty fashion focused. Like your t-shirt doesn't wear out that quickly if you bought a nice t-shirt, but you buy a new t-shirt because you want a new color or whatever. With socks, they both wear out because it is the only piece of clothing that really touches your body and the ground, unless you fall, right? And then there's a fashion focus. Socks are a big way that we signal. It's the kind of like the trend boomed in the early 2000s with like guys in suits on Wall Street. They would wear like funky socks to differentiate themselves. Then that lent itself into the sport world where like athletes would wear fun colored socks that again differentiate themselves if you're in a uniform. And so like our way to kind of increase lifetime value was just make sure we have an incredibly great product. So like people want to buy and wear more of them when they do wear out, but then also have a high cadence of new designs that come out for hitting that fashion element. So people want to come back and buy the fresh design or something that catches their eye. So I think it's different for every business. Some businesses are going to be like low lifetime value because like if you're selling a product that's designed to last forever, like I have a friend that sells it's called Henson Razor. and it's like one of those straight edge razors that like the single razors where you shave with, and their whole thing is like you never have to buy another one. So it's like he's quite literally in the business of like no lifetime value, because like it's just single purchase profitability and needs to find new customers all the time. Maybe he sells some blades, but there's no margin in the blades, and so maybe he sells like shampoo or something, or shaving cream, like something that's consumable. But like that's an example where like he just probably has to sell a really high ticket price and constantly acquire new customers, whereas we can have a value, like a high value price, and anticipate the consumer is going to come back multiple times a year to buy more socks. So it's not an answer where I'd have like, here's how you increase LTV. Ultimately, what it always comes down to though is the consumer had a good experience. If you had a shit experience, you're not going to buy again. So like it starts with good service, good experience, and the product meets expectations. And then from there, it's like, are you in the business where people repeat purchase or not?
Did you have a framework or a strategy when you were first starting out to keep improving the experience and improving the product?
Again, I was just the wearer of it. Like, right. So I would wear it and I was like, this doesn't make sense to me. Like, why can't this be better? Why can't we improve this? And just continue. Like the amount of times that our factory has been like, no, that's just the way it is. And it's just not the way it is. It's like, it would astound you. And it's funny because it still happens to this day. And like, I still stay involved, and I'm like, no, I don't agree. Like, just figure it out. Like, again, like it's just, I don't agree. Like, I see a reality where this is a solvable problem. So it goes back to that same thing I said, is like, I was the consumer. And so like, I was just obsessed with making it better. And so if the consumer was thinking it, our customers thinking, I was probably thinking it already. And I would wear like the newest version all the time, or the prototypes. And so I was usually ahead of what the consumer would come back to us with, and we would just kind of stay on top of that. But then from there, it's just it gets to a point at scale where like I can't be every consumer, and there are actually, like, now we have hundreds of thousands of customers. It's there's people that aren't exactly like me now. Like we've gone outside of that sphere, and so we have to take all those inputs and use those data points to help inform how we can improve the experience. But ultimately, like, our philosophy is just like, make it right. So we're not going to get it right all the time. If the consumer has a bad experience, how do we make it right? Because I forget where this quote comes from, but like and maybe it needs to be fact checked, but I've heard it and I believe it to be true. Like, a consumer who has a good experience tells one friend, a consumer who has a bad experience tells 11. So like, we're way more likely, like, when's the last time you left a review because you had a good experience? Usually you leave a review because you had a poor experience and you want the world to know, right? You feel like vindicated that you went out there. It's not a great thing to do, but like, everyone's done it or you've seen it been done. So you're way better to optimize for mitigating the downside of bad experiences by making it right than you are for like continually delivering perfect experiences. Like, that's just not going to happen. You're going to make mistakes, but you should make those right. We have just like, it's just like, just eat shit. Just like literally make it right no matter what, even if the consumer's wrong. Because like, the upside is just like, the world is small. Everyone talks, especially the business world. Don't burn bridges. Just move on and just like be a good person.
What do you think were some of your strategies in the early days and now to make things right?
Our business is quite simple. If something goes wrong from the consumer standpoint, it's like the product arrived too late, or it's something to do with like either delivery timelines or the product quality, like it wore out. Like, for example, like if the product wears out like in the first week, like that's a problem. Like we should look into that. But like, the reality is, when you're making millions of pairs a year, there's gonna be manufacturing defects. Like, there's always, like, just the law of big numbers is like, there's gonna be thousands of pairs that just have a hole from production, and then it gets bigger when you wear it. There's nothing we can do about it. So in that case, just replace it. Then you get into the more nuanced stuff where like someone has a sock for 3 years, and then they're like, hey, it finally wore out, but like these should last longer. I'm like, dude, you got 3 years? Like, you should go buy a lottery ticket, right? Like, but in that case, you don't argue. It's like, you don't try to like, you somewhat subtly try to be like, hey, like, like, similar to a high performance running shoe, like, there is a lifetime limit on like how many miles you would put on these. That said, totally get that this didn't meet your experience, and we're gonna send you a new pair. So you try to educate, but ultimately you make it right, and you don't argue. Like, you're never right, right? Like the consumer's always right. Like, they're not always right. Like, they're usually wrong, but like, they're right in the sense that you should just like fix it for them.
Starting off by just acknowledging them, being, and then subtly hinting like, hey, this usually like, these socks usually wear out in a couple of years, and it, like, this is a normal thing, but anyways, we'll send you a free pair.
Yeah, so you're trying to like nudge them in the right direction. Right. And a lot of people, when they reach out, like I'm sure you've dealt with some customer service stuff, but like they they reach out with like guns ablazing, right? Like they feel like, yeah, I don't know, like their ego gets involved and they just feel like, oh, I was done, you wronged me. The second you kind of hit them back with like an empathetic and understanding response, they immediately change their tune. And that's not our goal, is to like manipulate or do anything like that. Our goal is just to literally be empathetic and be like, hey, like totally get it. Like we didn't fulfill the promise that, like or we didn't fulfill that what you expected from us. So like, here's how we think about it, just so we can just share context here, but we're going to make it right. And then you hope over time that they start thinking in that way too. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. Like I did buy this $300 pair of running shoes for this marathon training. It only lasted 3 months. Like, why would I expect my socks that were $20 to last me 3 years? Right. Like, so like the reality is though, is like people just don't know much about our product like we do, and our job's to educate them. Like people think that if a regular sock is like $4 and they spend $20, they should last forever, but that's not the point, right? Like we don't market that our socks are the most durable in the world. Another company does that. What we do is we create like the Ferrari of socks, right? Like there's high performances you can get, but Ferraris break, like they need a lot of maintenance. So it's like we want our sock to be as durable as possible while still meeting the performance demands of the product. And there's always going to be trade-offs.
Right. How did you discover that unique angle, like becoming the Ferrari of socks?
Well, it was really just like looking at what was happening in culture. So like I talked about Lululemon, when we were building in 2016, the athleisure movement was happening, where everyone started going from more formal wear to just wearing active wear in everyday scenarios. And that was the yoga pant that really like started that trend. And socks at the time had remained use case specific, like the old world. So it was like a dress sock or a running sock or a cycling sock. And none of these socks were great outside of their circle of excellence, right? Like the running sock wasn't great. It was too thick or not great to wear in a suit or in a dress shoe. And it looked like crap. And then the dress sock that looked good had no performance benefits. It would fall down. So it's like, okay, this is a solvable problem. Like, why isn't there a yoga pant for the foot? Why can't we make a sock that's like 80% awesome at everything? It's not gonna be 100%, because if you make something that's good for everything, it's not good for one thing specifically. But how do we make a sock that like for the everyday athlete, the person that I was solving my own problem, right? I was a professional athlete. Now I was just a person that was like exercising, going to school and going to work. And I was like, why do I need to bring 3 pairs of socks? Right? Like I want to just wear one, and I want them to not stink. I want them to be comfortable. I don't want them to fall down. I don't want seams. I want them to look great. I had all these kind of hit list things. I was like, I'm going to go do all of those things. And that was just, that was the main motivation and the simple idea of like how we wanted to become the Ferrari of socks, or even like maybe something more like a utility based, but like in terms of performance, we have like 3 pillars. Performance is the first one. So like when we're thinking about product design, it needs to hit all the highest performance sort of standards that we would require in what we're saying the socks are for. So, or any other product, whether it be hats or anything else. The second one is then design. So, okay, once we've nailed performance, we want to make them as wonderfully designed as possible. But if that design takes away from the performance, we have to make a compromise, because performance is one, design is second. And then third would be things like sustainability. It's like, okay, like, and even durability. So maybe even durability is kind of like third. You would maybe consider like durability and in the performance area, but like they're kind of like 2 sides of the same coin. The performance features are going to be like, we need them to be this sort of thickness. We need this type of venting. We need these types of stitching or whatever. And sometimes that might not be the most durable way you could stitch something, right? So like you're kind of making a trade-off. But then you would say like, if this is what we have to do from a performance standpoint, how do we make sure that we're just doing it in the most durable way possible? Well, we can't do it this way. Because like the most durable thing would be like, let's make the socks 5 plies. Let's just make them super thick. Then they're not going to wear out. But like that doesn't work for a running shoe. So like third pillar would be kind of like durability. We want them to be like super durable within reason, but we can't compromise on the thing that makes the socks great, which is the performance and design. That'd be kind of like Ferrari saying like, this car can never break down. It's like, well, it's a sports car. Like look at an F1 car, like the most expensive cars in the world, and they like break all the time. They're super finicky. And so like, and then we want to look at things like sustainability and stuff like that. But like, we can't make the world's most sustainable product if it doesn't meet its first order objective, which is like high performance, well designed, durable, and environmentally friendly. And I think you can do all of those things really well. You just can't do them all 100%.
Almost figuring out what to sacrifice. sacrifice in the product.
Yeah, based on what your consumer promise is. We're not out there saying that these socks are going to last a lifetime. Like I said, there is another brand that does that, and that brand doesn't make a very good performance sock because they can't, right? When you weave Kevlar into a sock, it's not going to be the most comfortable or high performance sock that you can make. Just straight up isn't. Like, it's impossible. And it's going to look like crap, and they do. So, like, we're just different. We don't say we're the world's most durable sock. We say we're the world's most versatile performance sock. Incredibly comfortable, well designed, durable for what it is. If someone was to replicate this sock, ours will be as durable as is physically possible for this type of product. And then we'll also make it as sustainably as physically possible for this type of product. But we're not going to compromise on what we're telling you, that it's an incredible sock for performance.
So what do you think were some mistakes that you made when you were first starting out?
Well, I didn't have any of that clarity. I'm saying that now. It sounds like I had, like, everything I'm talking about is I didn't know any of this. Like, I was just like shots on net. Everything I'm saying is just like a distilled version of learning all the lessons. Right. So, like, we didn't always follow those principles. We didn't always, like, have the designs right. Like, we did actually at one point make a dress sock, which is kind of like off-brand, right? Yeah. Like, it's like exactly against what I'm saying the whole core vision of the business was, to like make the best sock for everything. Like, we've trademarked it, like the only socks you'll ever need, right? That's our whole goal, is like the vision of the company is to own the sock drawer, right? So like a vision should be something that's just like almost never achievable and like so grand, it gives you this motivation to chase it. So if you think of the idea of owning the sock drawer of like every human on earth, you open your sock drawer and it's just Outway. Like, that's a big vision. That'd be awesome. If we did that, then we're trillionaires, right? But like, then the mission to do that, to accomplish that goal, is to make the only pair of socks you'll ever need, right? And so if we can make the only pair of socks you'll ever need, eventually we'll meet enough people, then we'll just own the sock drawer. But I think like just, lack of clarity, but like all the mistakes we made were just really not knowing any different. And I think like they've all cultivated in us knowing what we know now, and we're going to make more mistakes. And yeah, I think it's just, I'd say, to really answer your question, because I've kind of like danced around it, it's like every time we've made a mistake, it's because we've got away from the promise we've made to consumers. We've started doing what we think we should do, not what the consumer wants us to do. And there's a push and pull there, because sometimes you need to show the consumer what they want. But like ultimately, when we veer away from the consumer promise and the vision and what like a special sauce of our business, we falter.
Something you were saying in one of your interviews that really stood out to me was your job is to have one great idea once a quarter.
Nowadays, right? So it's like my job in the early days was to do everything. Right. And now if you think about, like, you have to evolve as a founder. It's like you go like founder to CEO, really, if you're going to run the company especially at our current scale. It's like my job's not to touch the tools anymore. I'm not like really doing any of the work day to day. I have exceptional people that do that. So what's my job? I'd say my job really comes down to having, a good idea once a quarter, because those ideas are not like a simple idea, like, hey, we should do this color for socks. Like, that's not a good idea. A good idea is like, I've done the research, I've talked to a lot of people, and I think we should enter Europe, right? Like, that's the idea. And if you can have 4 of those types of ideas a year, like, those are big ideas. They're 7-8 figure ideas, typically in potential revenue. So it's like how you get those ideas. So like, if that's the job, how I define it, it's like one idea a quarter. The question then becomes like, how do you have the good idea? And then that can dictate now what your job is. So like, what that looks like for me is it's a lot of reading. It's a lot of meeting other entrepreneurs in the space. It's a lot of studying the space to collect as many dots as I can, that I can hopefully connect them and be like, here's the idea. So then when you have the kind of like the basic concept, you just work backwards and be like, how do I get to that? And that defines my role. And that's given me a lot of clarity and like a lot of security too. Cause like you have to remove this, a lot of your like personal satisfaction. And like when you lay down at night and you're like, hey, I did a good job. In the early days, it comes from doing the work. Right. But at a certain point, you'll lay down and you haven't done anything. You're like, did I do anything? Like, am I being effective? You have to rewire your brain to be like, no, like, I'm collecting information. You got to remind yourself, my job is to have one good idea, ideally more, but like if one is good enough, like, let's just do that. And so like, you just need to recalibrate so that when you go to bed at night, you lay down, and you're like, did I work hard enough? It's like, yeah, like I went out, I read this book, I met with this person, I studied this part of the industry, like I had this unique insight, and that's all collectively working towards what my job is to have that good idea. And so it's like just recalibrating what success looks like and how to make sure that you're being as effective as possible. And there's other things I do with my time. I don't just like avoid everything and just try to have a good idea. Obviously I manage my executive team. I've got corporate responsibilities and a bunch of other stuff that I do. But my core effect, like if I had to say like what's the one thing that really matters here, it's that good idea.
So how did you know when it was time to get to that point where like you could focus more on having the ideas rather than just simply working hard?
I say like most things in business, it's not like this set point. Like I think if you're like at this revenue point and this staff count, like that's when I move to this role. It's like nothing. Like the cool thing about entrepreneurship, like it says permissionless, is that there's also no rules, right? So like the more you look into other companies, say how are they doing it, and try to model that, I think the less successful you'll be because every business is different. Like I said, again, there are some core things to learn that are true throughout. Like there's going to be people problems. Like that's just going to happen, right? But I think like for me, it was when I no longer had the work, like I no longer was able to judge my success or how I was doing by the output of my work because there was no output, right? There was no like no KPI around like I sent this many emails today or I designed this many socks or I shipped this many orders. Like that was all being done by people I had hired and delegated to, and I hold them to account for that. But then how do I hold myself accountable? And so it really came out of like it just got to a point where that was the case, where I wasn't literally touching any of the tools anymore. And so then I have to go like, okay, if that's the case, then what's success look like for me? And that'll be different for people based on their business, their growth rates, the management team they've put in place if they've been able to do that. But it'll happen quite organically. It's just your job to figure out when that is and how you approach it. It's not a great answer because it's the answer is like it depends, right? And it's really context dependent. Maybe you're in a business where, again, you are actually quite tactical the whole time. Maybe you're owner operator style business. Maybe you're in the business of full delegation. Maybe you're more like an investor in this case. So again, I would first be like, what business am I in? And then second be like, what does that need from me? And like, at what scale am I? And like, how should I recalibrate what success looks like?
Yeah, something else I forgot is a big thing I do in the business, like I was telling you about before the podcast, is writing the ads and then doing all the ads. And I don't know when I'm like, maybe it will happen in like a few years, 5 years, whatever. But like, I can't see myself outsourcing the ads anytime soon because I know like more the creative marketing side, like that by far is my strength in the business. Yeah.
Yeah, and sales, it sounds like. Which is like, so like that's still like sales is a big role. So it's like, I think I don't know, but if I were you, I'd probably still judge myself on how many sales calls I did, right? Like, because like until you hire someone that's like head of sales or a GM of the business and you fully remove yourself out of all of those tactical roles, then I would say it's time to kind of like fully get into that like learning, delegating. But then I'd be like, can I franchise it? There's levels, I think, to like where you're at. I agree with you. You've delegated a lot of the like labor aspects of it, which you should. Like in that type of business, like you want it, like that'd be like the equivalent of people picking and packing and shipping our socks, right? It's like I should not be doing that. I need to delegate that as soon as possible. But then I did sales and marketing for like 7 years, because like no one's gonna sell your business better than you. You're gonna be more effective on the phone than anyone. Eventually, you'll find someone that could be even more effective than you, and then you want to remove that. But then maybe you go into like selling franchises of it, or like training up people to go enter a new market. Maybe you do Nanaimo or you do Vancouver, and so like you're still gonna be quite tactical in your sense. So I would, not to give you unsolicited advice, but I would like if I were you, I would think like where else could my sales mentality and this like where else could I apply that until I think I've truly maximized the scale of the business. And if you were like my ambition is just I just want Victoria, then it's cool. Then maybe you hire a GM that does all the sales or a head of sales and you do just focus more tactically on how to like grow it and whatever. But like I would kind of be like, oh, is now my success metric my ability to replicate this model in different territories, or is it to franchise it, or is it to go into house painting or other like labor-esque kind of like things that you could tack on to the business, right? Landscaping, other things that like are kind of like business adjacent to what you do. And those would be different teams, different. So it's a lot of sales, a lot of development, but you could almost just like keep going, right? And be like, but it all comes down to your ambition. And not even ambition, but it's like just your goal. Like, is the goal to just build a good lifestyle and have a nice little business, or is it to like just like really like scale this thing up? So I don't think like I would just like and I have to do this myself too. Like, maybe there's periods or seasons. I'd say I'm in a season of work right now where like my only core objective is not actually just the good idea. We're going through a brand elevation kind of exercise right now. We're 10 years in. Like, what's the brand look like for the next 10 years? And I've been really involved in that, like driving that. So I'm like quite tactical again in terms of working with the teams. And so there's times where you just like hop back in, right? You put the bat suit back on and you're like, hey, let's go like get some shit done. So there's times where you just, that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur. Sometimes you just like, you get back in, right? So I don't know. I don't know if that's helpful, but like that's how I would think about it, is like there's probably always some growth aspect that you should own for quite a while until you're like exceeding some of your wildest dreams.
Right. So what do you think your delegation timeline would look like? Like, what do you think you delegate first, and how long do you think you'd spend on that thing before you delegate it?
Yeah, I would say like there will be a time to delegate. Like, I'm a fan. This is where maybe me and Andrew, who you've had on your podcast, different opinion a little bit. He's like a huge fan of delegation, and so am I. But for first-time entrepreneurs or young entrepreneurs, delegating too quickly is, I think, a surefire way to kind of lose touch with your business, because like you've not built the skills and the experience to know how to manage, first of all, but second of all, how that function works, right? So like if you were day one to go just outsource the marketing, you wouldn't have all these insights that you're now gathering, right? And so like, but a lot of founders are like, oh, I own the business, so I'm going to hire someone to do sales, I'm going to hire someone to do marketing, I'm going to hire someone. But like, I'm sure you detailed the cars to start too. So like you understood it and you built a level of quality, and then you've trained someone. Now you're doing the marketing, you've built a level of insight and expertise, then you can train someone. So I believe in delegation. It's the only way to scale your business, but not from day one. You need to learn the functions. I learned how to do everything in my business, every part of it. There was a part where I was making the socks. Like, we bought all the machinery to make the socks. I like literally made socks. I packed orders, I shipped orders, I answered customer service emails, I built ads. I've done it all. So I have a pretty high degree of confidence when I'm holding someone accountable for what I've delegated. I have the ability to do that. And so that's like the most important nuance there is, yes, you need to delegate, and it's critical to your success. And if you do it right, the people you delegate to are going to be better than you, right? Because like your job is to be good at everything and be the business owner and the visionary. Their job is to be the best growth marketer in the world. That's one thing. Just plug them in, or the best car detailer in the world. And so it's critical success, and your product will improve because of it, but you need to understand how that function works before you delegate it. I think it depends on, like, if it's just a highly repeatable process, like picking, packing, shipping, and order immediately, like as soon as possible. Detailing a car, once you feel like you've got like, this is how we do it, here's our standard, immediately. The marketing becomes a little, things like marketing and sales, it's like these are maybe longer cycles of learning and high importance to the business success. Like, obviously detailing the cars is really important, just as like getting the socks to the customer is really important, but those things don't change to grow the business. Like the way you're going to detail a car, maybe it improves incrementally over time, but like it's not some amazing new tactic. Like the service of how you do that one car doesn't dramatically double the business overnight. It just makes that one customer happy. Whereas like an innovative marketing technique or sales strategy could like double, triple the business. So it's like these really high leverage, high impact parts, I think you really need to deeply own and understand. So it's more of like a priority / impact analysis of like, I'm going to own these and be very precious about delegating them until I feel like I've got a really repeatable process. And then even then I'm going to still stay pretty involved, versus all these other things that are like pretty process oriented, that are like they're the nuts and bolts and plumbing of the business. Like, they're not going to change much. They're incredibly important and they're required for the business to run, but they're not the things that are like going to move the needle substantially. I would delegate all those things and then focus on the things that grow the business before delegating them too early. And even when you do, stay pretty involved in them, because like they're the critical parts of your business, right? And it's kind of like, for lack of a better, I like to work in analogies again, because like that's how I like remember things. It's like, you know, when you get cold, the human body, all the blood rushes to your core to keep like your heart and lungs and the core things in your body that keep you alive. That's what it prioritizes. Your body will lose hands and fingers if it gets like before it dies, right? And so it's very similar. It's like you want to focus on the things that are keeping your business alive and really prioritize those until you have a really high degree of certainty that the people managing those things are going to give it the same level of care and growth that you would. Whereas like the fingers and toes are going to be like the picking, packing and stuff like that. It's like, it's like that can be delegated.
No, that definitely makes sense because the things like detailing the cars or picking and packing, like they're super important tasks, but they don't move the needle forward. They don't actually move the business. But then with the marketing and sales, for example, like those are the things that actually get you the sales in the first place. Like that's what actually makes you money. And I think a really big mindset shift that totally changed the way that I view business was realizing that like if I spend 12 hours out there detailing a bunch of cars, like sure it might feel good, it might get to the end of the day, feel like I work super hard, but that stuff, when I really think about it, didn't actually make me any of the money.
Yeah, it's like, where's your time best spent? It's like, and sometimes you gotta do it. I mean, like in the early days, you just gotta do that because someone's gotta detail the cars. But like it gets to a point where it's not the most effective use of your time.
One quote that you mentioned that really caught my attention was chasing growth will make you do things that kill your brand in the long term.
Again, I think it just comes down to like the consumer promise and like why are you doing the things that you're doing? I think like so one of the traps of entrepreneurship is like you start and you'll get success and then you will meet other people that are maybe a little further ahead of you and you'll want to be like them. Like you'll be like you're like, "Oh man, like I can see what the future looks like. I just want to like close that gap." And so back to the impatience part. This is where impatience really can kind of screw you is you'll start rushing to try and grow your business. And the problem is when you rush those things, you're forgetting the core thing I said earlier is like it just takes time, right? Like sometimes you just can't force things. So what you're going to do is you might engage in a marketing tactic or a sales tactic that's slightly off brand or maybe has, not the return you would normally anticipate for like the unit economics or metrics that you would want the business to be successful. And you see businesses do this all the time. And really what it usually looks like is just throwing good money at bad marketing that shows top line growth, but you're just burning cash. You're just like not profitable. And so you can like from the outside look good, be like, oh, look how much I grew. We did $1 million this month. It's like, yeah, but I spent $1 million on marketing too. It's like I like lost $500,000 after all my costs, right? It's like, that's not cool, right? In reality, it looks cool in an Instagram story, right? Like, but it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. And like, if your job as an entrepreneur is to be like in search of truth and reality and like be honest with yourself is like, if we're losing money, it doesn't even matter. Like, I'm way more impressed with the business doing $1 million in revenue with $200K in profit than 10 million in revenue and $500K in losses, right? It's like, it doesn't matter at that point. You're not making money, right? So it's like chasing growth for growth's sake is not fulfilling anyone's needs except your ego in reality. Or if you've just made that bet with your investors and like you're trying to arbitrage something, maybe there's a case where you just like, that's kind of like the tech playbook in a lot of cases, and the venture capital playbook is like just throw money at the thing to get market share and then get acquired. So if you're playing that game, just know you're playing that game, but most businesses are not that game. 99.9% are not that game, so don't play it. And so I just think it just like if you always ask yourself and just look in the mirror and say like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Is it like, am I trying to look cooler in front of my peers? Am I trying to close the gap between me and my network? Am I trying to like optimize for an Instagram story versus real business metrics? Am I trying to win an award? Those are all bad reasons. Like, and you should look in the mirror and honestly check yourself. And I've made that mistake. I'm speaking from experience. I've done it all. And what I tell you is it's just not worth it. Like, it's a miserable way to operate. It's way better when you're running authentically. The consumer's happy. Maybe you're growing slower, but you're profitable. You're in control of your destiny. You're doing things because they matter. It's just way better. And eventually, if you just wait long enough, you'll be able to do those things and you'll have the really high revenue. So we do that now and we're crushing it. It took 10 years, right?
How do you think you got yourself out of that toxic mindset?
Just by doing it, like I'm hoping maybe someone listens to this and can check themselves, but they probably won't. So it's fine. Like you're gonna make these mistakes. I made them. Everyone I knows made them. Just hopefully you can recognize them sooner and get out of them sooner. Like I said, I think every entrepreneur is going to touch the stove and hit the wall. So it's like, hopefully you can hit the wall at 20 kilometers an hour, not 100, right? So like, that's the goal. Or hopefully the stove's not scalding hot. It's just a little hot. So like, maybe you learn the lessons by hearing me say these things or reading the articles or listening to other people. and you're able to check yourself sooner, or you see you're in that mindset. But I think most people will fall victim to it almost. So it's like, that's okay. Just give yourself grace. It's just like, don't do anything really dumb. Don't take on a ton of debt. Don't make really big bets that have high consequences with low odds of success. Because like, if you just stay in the business game long enough, you'll be successful. But staying in the game is incredibly hard. That's the main thing. I think most people, like most businesses are death by suicide, right? Like the founder gets distracted, or they make a big bet, or they take on debt. It's rarely because the business has no consumers. Every business can like get some level of consumers. It's just like, if you inflate your costs or your ego or all these, you lose focus. It's like you kill the business. Like, it's very rarely business dies because no one buys from it.
Do you think there was a time when your business was close to failing?
It was on the path for sure. It's knock on wood, never been like, if we don't do X, Y, or Z, we're going out of business, thankfully. But there were points where if we continued down the path for another year or so, it was probably hard to turn around. And that was a period of which where we were just chasing growth, doing things because they were the things we thought we should be doing, not what the consumer wanted us to do. And it was really like, I remember it was July 2023 where I kind of like, I imagined all the things we were doing on a table, I just like wiped them off and said, we're just starting over. Like, we're just going to get back to basics. And that set this like path forward that we're on now, where we're, just doing incredibly well, but also enjoying what we're doing. And so I think like just being able to know when you're on this destructive path and make a change, where a lot of people may be like, because that it sounds easy now to be like, I'm just going to stop doing all those things. But the risk I had to take when doing that was that our revenue would drop, our story would kind of like drop. I can't be like, oh, look, we grew this year, we're doing X amount of revenue. That was a sacrifice of like, you stop doing all these bad marketing growth tactics, maybe the growth in those areas goes away, and it should, because it was just useless anyways, but revenue might take an impact. So there's an ego hit to it, and a lot of people aren't willing to do that.
So what do you think? What do you think's the difference between what you're talking about before, like for example, when you're first starting out your business, and then you got you got your samples shipped out before Halloween, like everything was shipped in 2 weeks rather than 6 months. You had the healthy sense of urgency and chasing growth in a bad way. Like, what are some examples of good urgency and bad urgency in business?
I think like just exactly the examples you gave, really. It's like the good urgency is like getting the product to market, getting new products to market when they make sense, and like getting the data and the feedback from them and getting them tested. Trying new marketing concepts, like really things that like, I think you just look at like Jeff Bezos has the concept of like two-way doors and one-way doors. And two-way doors really being things that you can come back from. So like you can always come back from like a small marketing campaign that doesn't do well or whatever. It's like, just avoid the amount of one-way doors, which are the one things that if it doesn't work, you're screwed. Like, you're out of business. Just avoid all of those. And those would be like big reputational bets with your brand, big marketing campaigns, big inventory purchases, things that are going to like bankrupt you if they don't work. But like everything else should be high urgency. Like even hiring for the most part, like hire fast, they say hire slow, fire fast. I think you should hire fast, fire fast. Because like you want to have a good idea but of who you want to hire, but like, and a lot of that work should be done in advance of knowing you need to hire someone. So like the way I like to hire right now is to just build a network of people constantly that I'm talking to. And I'll keep kind of a mental note or an idea of like who those people are. And so when I have the idea or when a job opportunity comes up, I can hire fast. So not to say that like, so being able to hire fast or execute fast is also just putting yourself in a position to be able to do so and do so with high degree of confidence. It's not to say that you should have done none of the work and just be like, okay, one resume there, I'm just going to hire you. That's just a bad idea. Like, that's just stupid. So put yourself in a position to be able to move fast. But I think, urgency should be with things with high upside and low downside potential, pretty asymmetric risks. And if there's something with high downside, you should probably take your time.
Right. Okay, I just shifting gears a little bit. You made a post on LinkedIn. It was more talking about your current identity, like limiting beliefs. More, or actually, let, let me let me pull it up. Yeah, so it was the one. So there's a there's a post you made on LinkedIn that I loved, which was called "Everything Holding You Back Is a Choice." And I'm just curious, which parts of your identity have you had to get rid of to get to the next level?
most things, like I said early on, like I think the biggest unlock recently, which I'll speak to, is like what drove me to start in the initial days, like we talked about, that chip on my shoulder and the watch me attitude, is not the thing serving me now. I got to a point where like I like where I'm at, and I think I've proved myself. Like, and if anyone doesn't agree, like I don't really care, right? So if that's gone, it's like how do you motivate yourself to keep going? And so I've had to learn, not learn, but just like recalibrate even my sense of like purpose for why what I'm doing, and kind of refigure out what are the driving factors if it's not going to be what Brent Beshore would call like dirty fuel, like that kind of like, Michael Jordan's famous for like dirty fuel, right? Like Michael Jordan, like if you've watched um the documentary on Netflix with following him in the Chicago Bulls, I'm blanking on the name of it, but The Last Dance. Yeah, exactly. You can see throughout the whole documentary, he's building up stories in his head of other competitors, why he hates them. He's using slights that he's heard, and he's using all this fuel, this competitive energy to kind of like propel him forward. That works until you no longer have that fuel, um, or it's no longer serving you. And I say that's how I really operated. Certainly in cycling, my cycling career was dirty fuel in the sense of I didn't make any of those teams. Like once I'm gonna get anything, watch me. I want to beat you. I just want to be the best. And if I look back to it, I love cycling, but I think that was more of just like a self-discovery outlet versus me like actually wanting to be the best cyclist. If I'm being true, like fully honest with myself. And then again with entrepreneurship, it was more of an effort to prove to myself and others that it wasn't just a fluke that I was successful with cycling. It's like, okay, I'll do it again. Watch me. In another area that I'm not necessarily experienced in. Then I did it to some degree. Like there's no objective win in business like there is sport. Like I won the Canadian overall title in cycling. Like that's objectively on paper, right? Like I won it. It was the best in Canada that year for the national series. In business, it's like, is it $1 billion? Is it $1 trillion? Is it a million? There's no objective thing. So for me, it's just that like, okay, I built a business that's done over 60 million in sales, and I've built a team, and I've kind of done all these certain things. I was like, I feel like, if I died today, like I think I did it. I think I built a business, and like I proved I could do it, and people love the product. And so like my subjective take is that I got to a point in business where like I proved to myself, and for lack of a better, like, for this is not the strategy I like now, but like to others, like, look, I did it. Watch me. That doesn't serve me anymore. So it's like I kind of maybe over the last 2 years went through a bit of a process of like, okay, like now what? Like, why do I do what I do? Right? Like, am I happy doing what I do? Like, honestly, if I really look at it, it's like I spent 20 years not even having a moment to take a breath to be like if I had no desire to prove other people wrong or prove to myself, like what would I actually do? And so it's kind of like a somewhat scary process to go through that. And then ultimately came out to the end of like, I love what I do. It took a while to kind of find my way back, but it came back to that original thing is like, I love sport. I love the idea of just incremental and daily improvement. Like the idea of just get up, have a really big goal and just work away at chipping away at getting it. And that's always driven me what I always love to do. And that's just my own self-satisfaction. It's not for external validation. It's not even internal. I just want to like improve and get better and be a better version of myself. And I reintegrated that feeling with why I'm doing the business and how our business actually shows up in the world. Our business is very much around like pursuing personal best and showing up to the start line, not getting to the finish line first, but supporting everyone along that journey. And you'll see with this brand refresh, which has really invigorated me, is like I think you'll see this like maturity of both me as a founder, but also the business really come out in a few months from now, which we're filming this in February 2026. In like April 2026, when this kind of brand rework, which I've shared with some people, um, it's exceptional. And I think people will get it, and it'll kind of like, yeah, really show what kind of like what we're working on moving forward. And I think that's really been the exciting journey for me. And you kind of have to go through these versions of yourself where you kill the old version of you and you rebirth, and maybe that new version of you continues doing what you were doing, or maybe you do something else. And thankfully for me, I was able to come around and realize I like what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing. I love the people I do it with. I think we've got so much opportunity. I'm so inspired and like reinvigorated with what we can potentially do and what we're working on. And that's been a cool place to come from. And I don't give a shit if anyone cares. Like I'm doing it for me. if people like I don't have anything to prove, like I know we're awesome. So I'm kind of a point now where it's like I know what we're doing is dope. I know like I'm great at what I do. So it's like that's a pretty good space to operate from. Like, and our business is doing well and we have no debt, and it's just like I'm in full control. It's just like let's see how great this can be, right? It's a pretty yeah, it's a liberating mindset to be in. It's just like how good can I be, right? Like how great could I be is a pretty interesting one. Not just like I'll show them I'm great. It's how great can I be.
When do you think your mindset changed from wanting to prove people wrong, wanting to show other people you're great, to more thinking like you said, how great can you be?
I think the transition started 2 years ago. So like 8 years in, we had a decent amount of success, um, and had battled and come through enough adversity at that point. Whereas like knowing that the adversity is never going to go away and there's always going to be challenges, have to kind of be like, do I want to keep doing this? Do I want to keep like just like like touching the fire? And like if I'm going to, then like I need a bigger purpose than watch me, right? Like it's got to be more intrinsic. And so yeah, it was just a 2 year journey again of just like not ever losing touch with why I was doing what I was doing, but just questioning if that's the right path, or if like so there's optionality, right? It's like if I've done all right and I could hire someone to run the business if I really wanted to, if I didn't want to do it. Like I don't have to do this anymore. I could go do something else. Which is true of anyone. Like anyone can just do whatever they want, right? Like you're not stuck ever. Maybe circumstances have you a little bit stuck, but like you can generally make hard decisions. But ultimately decided that like, I want to do it. And I think so I don't know, it's not a great answer, but it definitely started like there's like I think well documented data on like the like 7-8 year slump of an entrepreneur of like the things start to work and you get 7 years in, you're kind of like get fidgety a little bit and you're like, is this what I want to keep doing? And like, do I want to recommit to this next 7-8 years? Cause like they come in cycles a little bit. And yeah, just chose to recommit.
Tell me more about your psychological audit with Jack Skeen.
So that was kind of like the starting point of this whole thing. I think that was back in 2024. Yeah, it was. Where I'm good friends with Andrew Wilkinson, who was on your podcast. We've referenced a few times, and I was going through this, and I just said to him, I was like, "Hey, like, do you have a good business coach or therapist I could go see to like chat about these things?" And he's like, "Do Jack Skeen. Jack Skeen does this thing called it's a full 360 review. He calls it the roadmap process, where basically like you get this. He attempts to get a full picture of you, and so he interviews the people closest to you in your life. He puts you through a couple psychological like clinical tests to see your personality traits and all these other types of things. He does 6 kind of sessions with you to kind of like really suss out who you are and why you do the things you are doing. And the real end product of that is that he's supposed to like tell you what's your purpose, like why do you do what you do. And sometimes that can be like a bad outcome, not bad outcome, but a jarring outcome, because like he, in his own words, he's had like high performing CEOs come to him and like their purpose is to be like a high school teacher. Like that's what would bring them energy, and like that's a whole recalibration of like the life I'm living, right? So I went in there not knowing what the end product would be, and ultimately it came out that like I am doing the right thing, which was great. But I learned a lot about myself and just some insecurities I had. Like one main one that I'll share is like a little insecurity of like I say I run a sock company, right? And like a lot of people will come to me and be like, if I say that, they kind of like just look right through me like socks, like why don't you run a real business, right? It's like, and I'm just like, yeah, well, like I don't want to sit there and like get my ego up and be like, well, do you know how big it is? It doesn't like, yeah, it's all right, but like, and that was reinforced a little bit too. Like when I started the sock business, my like I talk about my writing that I came from like a very traditional family and traditional neighborhood where like kids go to university and get jobs, like the safe jobs. And so when I even started so that even doing the cycling thing was already kind of taboo. Like, is Rob still biking? Then I started the sock company, and there's like, is Rob still doing that sock company thing? So it's always kind of this kind of like, is Rob just gonna like eventually grow up and get a real job? It's like, well, Rob can hire your kids now. So like, like, so maybe back up a little bit. But so that was a bit of that like watch me attitude. It's still maybe in there a little bit, but yeah, Jack helped me realize that like if you put it in simple terms, is like, why aren't socks enough, right? Like if it was shoes, would it be different? Nike's a pretty sweet company. If it was tennis rackets, would it be different? Wilson's pretty dope. Just like, why does socks make your thing any less great than any other product? Like you're the best at it. You're attempting to be the best at it. Like that should be enough. And it was really just like, yeah, you're right. Like socks are no different than hats or basketballs or shoes. It's like, maybe it's not as technical a product as a rocket, but like it's an important product. It's a huge market and I want to be the best at it. So it's like, okay, I'm going to remove this insecurity of running just a sock company. Like really this thought of like, am I using these skills for the best possible opportunities? Like you are, like now. He's like, do you have a better idea? I was like, no. He's like, then just do it and do it the best you can. And so it's really much like, I guess like, yeah, like this just idea that like not being insecure and not caring about what other people think as much was like the main takeaway from it, and really putting me on that path of being like, okay, like I am actually good at this and this is a good utilization of my skills and there is a lot of opportunity here. Like what would recommitting to that look like?
What do you think was the most pleasantly surprising thing you learned about yourself?
For lack of a better, like the real answer is that like what I'm doing is good enough. I don't need to prove anything to anyone.
Yeah.
Like that was what came out of that, right? Like if you think back to the young boy who was never good enough to make the teams, who felt like nothing was ever good enough, it's like you have to retrain yourself to be like, no, you are enough, right? Despite life's not performative. Like you, Sam, regardless of any other how good your business, like you're enough, right? Like you're good. Like it's all good. Like you're worthy of love, you're worthy of friendship, you're worthy of everything the world has to offer. And it's not up to how good your business does or how good you are at sports, you know? Like, and that's not generally how we're brought up in the world. Sometimes parents, they have expectations of, almost always they have expectations of you. The world has expectations of you. Sports have expectations. And just being reminded that like, remove all of that, like you're good, right? Like you're enough. That's probably like the main takeaway is like, I can just relieve myself of trying to prove to everyone or the world that like I'm good enough, and I can just focus on being great because I want to be, right? That's probably the biggest takeaway is just you'd maybe call that insecurity, right?
Yeah, that's actually been something that's also really been going through my head. Like, so I was just on a trip to Mexico with one of my really good friends, and then we were having a conversation, and then I think I said something like I feel like I'm a failure in business, or like something that talking to him really made me realize was like I attach my self-worth a bit too much to how well my business does or like how much revenue my business makes. And then he was like, "Okay, what's a bad month for you in business?" I was like, "Oh yeah, 10K is like really bad." And he was like, "Do you know what you just said? Like that's really good. Like why are you judging yourself so much on that?" And it's like, why are you setting this bar for yourself that's like so high that you're never going to be able to achieve it? Kind of like this invisible bar that just keeps going up. Like why can't you just be enough how you are? And I think that was a really big epiphany for me.
Well, yeah, I mean that's my latest article is the ladder has no top. And so like entrepreneurship is climbing an infinite ladder. And to your point, it's like so I've 10K months incredible, man. It's great. It's just enjoy it because eventually like it'll be 100K and eventually it'll be a million and like it'll never be enough, right? I remember it's like once I hit six figures over 100K in revenue, I'll be happy. Once I hit a million, I'll be happy. Once I do six figures in a day, I'll be happy. Once we do eight figures, I'll be like we've done all of that. I'm not like it's no different. Like there's no making it. There's no like that number made me happy. It doesn't matter. It's like, do you like what you're doing? Do you like the people you're doing it with? Are your basic needs met? Can you go to Mexico and still run your business? Like that's pretty awesome. You're young. You can go run your business from Mexico. Like that is awesome. Like that's more of a measure of success than a revenue number, right? So it's like if you attach your identity to your business results, you're going to be a miserable human because they're never going to be good enough ever.
Oh, that's that's totally true. And I think like what you just said too, a way better measure of success is like your lifestyle. Like, are you living the life that you want to live? Or like, are you living the life that you told yourself that like you're gonna be living at this time?
But yeah, I think of like the Naval has a lot of good quotes, and one of my favorite ones of him was the only true test of intelligence is if you get what you want out of life. And that's an interesting kind of concept because like he's not saying what you should want, just what do you want? Some people want security and they want like a what you would call like a pretty basic life. They want like a job, they want kids, they want a vacation. And if that's what they want, then they're successful. And if you want something else, then you're successful. But if I think where people lose sight is that they're playing the wrong game or they're not actually trying to achieve what they want or what makes them happy because they've attached their identity to their metrics or their self-worth to other people's opinions of them, and it's just like not a very fun way to operate. It's really hard not to, though. Like, this is all easier said than done. I still, like, to be very clear, I still care what people think. Like, it still sometimes bothers me. I've gotten better. I still sometimes am competitive and want to, like, show people that I can do it or whatever. Like, that's always going to be there. There's never going to be this point where you're like, I am completely rid of all of that. What you get better at is reminding yourself that that shouldn't matter. Right? It's maybe people do get to a point where they're just like completely, maybe they're like, I don't know, Buddha at that point or something, but like, I don't know. I've never met someone that's got it all figured out.
And I think also it's important to accept that like you're never going to have everything figured out, and you're never going to reach a point where it's like you never care what people think, and almost being just being okay with not being perfect, being okay with like caring what people think sometimes, like being more competitive sometimes.
I think that's part of it. It's like, hey, that's just like, I have fun being competitive sometimes, or I sometimes caring what someone thinks makes me better, right? Like, I think it's like, it's just taking the positive signals from it, not letting it hold you back. I think like if that competitive nature drives you to like push a little harder or learn something or take an action that in my view makes you better, is more aligned with your personal values, great. If that competitiveness or that person's opinion stops you from doing something you would have otherwise wanted to do, that's bad. So it's like, just choose where the energy flows is maybe a better idea, a way to think about it.
Yeah, for sure. And I find, at least for me naturally, like I'm a very competitive person, but there's bad directions to have that energy go. Like, for example, always comparing yourself to people, always saying that like you're not good enough, you got to hit this certain number, etc. But then also it's like there's like good places for that, for the competitive energy to go. And if you find like you're naturally competitive and like that's something that naturally gives you joy in business, then you shouldn't be telling yourself it's a bad thing.
Yeah. I think like, again, it just comes down to like, why are you doing the things you do?
One thing that I saw in your writing that really interested me was you said, most of what I was afraid of existed only in my mind. The scenarios I catastrophized, the judgment I imagined, the failure I was certain it would follow if I admitted I was struggling, none of it was as real as I made it.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I mean, we're often suffer mostly in our mind than in reality. And like, I think the main thing was like, when you start your first business or you're new to business, and even if you're more experienced, when things happen, they're pretty novel. So like the first time you get served a legal notice, it's like, oh my God, like I'm the only one in the world this is happening to, and my business is now in peril. The reality is that's just like, I remember I told someone that I got served a legal notice, and they're like, oh, you're not even a real business unless you get sued, right? Like, it's like their mindset, they're just so far along that they're like, just like, oh, that's just normal. So it's like, but because it's the first time, because it's novel, you have a tendency to kind of like catastrophize these things or really build up the anxiety or the stress in your mind. But again, this will be one of those things that, like, unfortunately, you're just gonna have to figure out, right? Like, you're just gonna have to go through the reps and go run into the walls and be like, okay, I survived that, I survived that, I survived that, I survived that. Like, I can survive these things. And then eventually you'll build resiliency and strategies to like not have such a autonomic response to like things coming at you in business. There's another like kind of like concept, I forget who to quote by referencing it, but it's this concept of like two arrows. Is like, in business there will be two arrows, and the first one you can't avoid. So imagine someone just like shoots an arrow at you and hits you. You can't avoid it. That's like the attack. That's the legal letter. That's the whatever. The second arrow you can avoid, and that's your reaction to it. And if you have a bad reaction to it and you catastrophize, you get negative, and you have a poor attitude, or you're like, oh, woe is me, and like I'm never gonna make it. It's like that's the second arrow, and you're in complete control of that. So like, why would you want two arrows? So it's like you're better off to be like, okay, this happened. I'm going to figure out the best way to solve it. And I'm just not going to try and drive myself into the ground while I do that, right? Like, there's no net benefit to being hard on yourself in those situations, unless you put yourself in that situation knowingly, right? Like, so there's things you should be doing in business and all the time to mitigate the risk that these types of things happen. So like, if you don't want legal letters, don't do something illegal, right? First off, like knowingly, like don't operate in a way that would be risky in that sense. And so just don't like knowingly put yourself. So let's just assume that people are operating with high integrity when these things happen, and they will. Just deal with them, and it'll be okay. Like, and you're not the first one dealing with this. Try and seek out someone that has dealt with it to help walk you through it. But yeah, easier said than done. And I still feel those stressors, and I still have the PTSD of things for sure. It's just like over enough time though, you realize that a lot of these things are way worse in your mind than they are in reality. Like there's so many times in our business where like I've lost years off my life probably stressing, and like now far enough removed, it's like, oh, it wasn't that big a deal. And it's just like, oh man, like why did I stress so hard? Yeah.
How do you manage that stress and anxiety, and like what kind of tactics have you learned to deal with that? Because I find that's a huge struggle for me right now in business. Just feeling stressed out and anxious over things that like in the long term I'm gonna look back and realize like it didn't even matter at all.
Well, first I would bucket them, things you can control and things you can't control. So I would take the ones I can't control and just forget about it. Easier said than done, but just try and like lock them up in a box in your brain, put it to the back of the brain, and just don't think about it. The things you can control, the best way to mitigate anxiety and stress is to take action. Those two things alone will get you like 99% of the way there. Like just take action. Like a lot of people are anxious because they know they should do something and they're not doing it. A lot of people are stressed because there's a potential something will happen because they're not mitigating that thing. And then all things you can't control is like, well, like why would you try to control something you can't control? So like that's just a losing battle. So it's like I think what I found successful or found success in is like the things I'm stressed and anxious about that I can control. I've always felt better when I just take action on it, despite how uncomfortable it might be. Whether it's a hard conversation with an employee, firing them perhaps, whether it's a hard discussion with a shareholder or anything, right? And it's just like, or it's just maybe it's a stressful thing. Like for example, like for a while there was a stress that we were managing our own fulfillment, and we were doing so in a space that we had a really good deal on rent. But the downside of that really good deal is that any time we could be served notice to vacate the space. We didn't have like a long-term lease on it. And if I needed to go replicate that space with normal lease rates, I couldn't afford the space. So that's a real risk. So there's always going to be a little bit of stress that I'm going to lose my lease. I don't know where I'm going to go. I can't afford the new space. The best way to mitigate that, which we did, was to outsource the warehousing to a third-party logistics partner. So we now have we have someone else managing our warehouses for us, and they ship, and we have warehouses in Canada and the US and all over now. So that was kind of like a stress that I was in control of solving. It just required hard work. Like it wasn't easy to like reimagine how our logistics worked, and like there was expenses involved, and it was just like scary. It was easier just to be like, this won't be a problem, but it's a real stressor. Another one would be like supply chain dependency. Like we only had one factory for a long time. Like if that factory burned down, we're screwed. So now we have a few, right? So it's like those things. Those are the things like, what are the little things that are like ruminating that could be issues? Go take action, build a plan, work towards that plan, and then at least you'll know you're doing it. And then for the anxious parts, so yeah, just like take action on those as well. Have the conversation you're not having, over communicate, always let people know where you stand, do the work, fix the issue, and then the stuff you can't control, just move on from it. All easier said than done. All incredibly hard. I'm not good at. I don't take this. I don't act on what I just said all the time. No one does. Like we're not perfect. But just incrementally getting better at recognizing those things and, okay, am I stressed? Can I control it? Yes or no? Yes. What should I be doing to mitigate it? I'm going to start doing that. So you just run through that kind of like framework.
Something I've learned is like that is actually the true measure of discipline. Like if you just work like 12 hours a day on like super easy things but avoid like the hard conversations, avoid the work you don't want to do, then you're not really a very disciplined person. I think like you're not going to get that far, but I've learned from my experience it's like real discipline, and I guess like real confidence. Like that comes from having those uncomfortable conversations that you aren't having, doing the work and doing all the things you're avoiding.
Yeah, I think it's the difference between a entrepreneur and an entrepreneur. The entrepreneur is just going to do all the fun, flashy stuff, and they flame out very quickly. A lot of the success is in the unsexy stuff. It's the uncomfortable conversations. It's the risk mitigation. It's the building the actual company, not just the business and the brand that you see outwardly. And it's the personal work too. And it's just like, it takes time. It takes time. And it's not always the sexy story to post online about, which is like, like entrepreneurship and starting a business has really just become this kind of like status symbol. But it's like, it's not. It's hard work. It's like, you heard the quote. It's like an entrepreneur avoids a 40-hour week and trades it for an 80-hour week, right? It's like, because if you don't see any other path forward than being an entrepreneur and solving that problem, then you should be one. If you, the people that come to me and be like, hey, I'm thinking about starting a business, but like I've got these opportunities, I'm like, go do those. Like the fact they're even asking me, you're not it. You ain't it. And you don't have to be. That's fine. Not everyone is. Not everyone's a professional athlete. Not everyone's an entrepreneur. The world needs doctors, lawyers. The world needs grocery store clerks and garbage men. Like, those are all incredibly important roles in the whole value chain and the whole economy and society that we live in. And if everyone was just an entrepreneur, everyone was just an athlete, or everyone was just X, Y, or Z, it's like that's we're not going to be a functioning society. And it's okay. And just as much as like I need intrapreneurs, like the people that work for me are very entrepreneurial, but they obviously work for me. They're not running their own thing. So they're very like high agency, they're very hardworking, but maybe they want a little bit of the security that comes with working for a company. And so like those people are incredibly important as well. Like if I was like, you should all be entrepreneurs, they wouldn't be working for me and I need them. Right. So like you need to be able to like respect that everyone's got a different path and skill set and desire. And I think, again, it coming down to being in the search of truth and reality is like asking yourself, like, do I want to be an entrepreneur because I think it's cool, or do I see no other option? I saw no other option. I could have cared less if it was cool. Yeah, I could, like, it wasn't like, I was 2016, like, it wasn't cool, right? Like it wasn't what it is today. Being an athlete was cool. I really wanted to do that. I just couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah. And okay, what do you think has been the biggest personal struggle or personal battle that you've had to go through to get your business to the point that it's at now?
Well, probably just that, like what we talked about, that transition from building the business to prove I could do it, to building the business to just be as great as it could possibly be. So like I think that's probably it. And I think that's every transition every founder's gonna have to make. I think because like you start it to kind of like, another quote I love. I forget the person who said it. It's just like entrepreneurship is a trauma response, right? And like everyone I say that laughs because it is. Every entrepreneur who's a real entrepreneur laughs at that statement because they're like, oh my God, I've never heard anything more true in my life. But there's a point where the business can no longer be this vehicle of self-discovery and it has to be a real business. So you as a founder have to recalibrate, like we've talked about, why you're doing what you do and evolve. And if you don't, you're just going to take it down in flames. So I think like the biggest thing I had to do is evolve into the founder that runs the business because I think we can build an exceptional company, not because I'm trying to prove to the world I'm great.
What do you think's the next version of yourself that you have to build? And what do you think's like the current identity that you have to get rid of in order to get to the next level?
I think I'm setting the stage for that. Like I think the next thing I want to do is in service of something, not for me at all. Um, I don't know what that is yet. I have ideas, but that's why I want to make this one. There's still some selfish goals with this business. Is I want to make enough money with it that I don't need to work again to make money, so I can then focus on something in service. So I say like it's okay to be selfish in the short term, to be selfless in the long term in this sense. Um, so the next version of me. So I say like the first version was the athletic early entrepreneur Rob of like proving to the world I can do something great. The current version is to build something great, and then the next version is to like be great in service or be in service to some greater cause that I think is like something that my perhaps energy, resources, insights, and capital can help solve. One obvious one is just our sport industry. I think it's like it's a bureaucracy that's just destined for average, and I think that we have so much potential in Canada. And an entrepreneurial approach to how we organize sport would be interesting to like rethink that. I don't know though. It'll be something like that where it's like there's a big problem and I want to solve it for no other reason than I think it needs to be solved for the greater good of like that group of people. Which I would be included in. Like I came up in the sports system and there was a lot of failings of it, right? Like I said, like I was ranked number 1 in the country for cycling and we would go to world championships and be expected to buy our Canadian jersey. The fuck is that? Yeah, dude. Like, and this is not an uncommon story. It's like, what's that? What's that all about? So I want to fix those types of problems for the upcoming athletes. Like these, that would be something interesting. I'm also volunteering in the hospital foundation right now, like, so perhaps there's something there. I'm trying to figure it out still. I'm laying the groundwork, but the next 10 years are committed to building that great thing, and then probably after that, some sort of active service.
So something else you wrote was, as you grow, you'll get endless advice. Some of it's signal, some of it's noise. The hard part is filtering it for what actually makes sense for your business at your stage with your resources. Don't follow blindly. Context is everything. And I notice in quite a few of your posts, actually, something you've been talking about quite a bit lately is like you're not a big fan of following advice or giving advice to other people, and you're more in favor of sharing stories and taking kind of your own insights from other people's experiences rather than direct advice. Walk me through that a little bit.
Yeah, and the irony of sitting down for 2 hours and sharing advice is not lost on me. But I think if you listen to this, you'll hear I'm being intentionally trying to share my experiences and not give advice. Um, but it is obviously like in some sense advice. But I'm not telling you you should do something. I don't think you should do anything I said if it doesn't work for you. I think that's maybe the difference. Is I'll tell you what I think, what my experiences were. I will give you my opinion on what you're doing if you want, but I don't think you should listen to me unless it's right for you. So I think that's maybe the nuance of what I think about advice. But like I share that the sentiment around advice is because I've been the net negative beneficiary of taking too much advice. So like, and it's the so like maybe the article I wrote there, like the working title for that article was kind of like the network I would have killed to build almost killed me. And this concept of like I built a business, we got to like that $10 million in total revenue, and I started to meet really interesting people, like a lot of my business idols. And it created this like sense in me that wow, I'm kind of like I'm like that little kid, I'm finally in the club. Like I don't want to lose it. I want to stay in the club. And they start giving you advice. It's like, okay, I'm gonna act on this advice. Surely they know what they're doing. And they do, but in the context of their own business. And so like you take that advice and now you have this kind of like conscious weight of acting on it and proving that you took it, and you want to like prove to them that you're listening and stuff. And beyond just the advice, you then want to, just like I mentioned earlier, close that gap to where you are and they are. Because like if you it's natural to feel like if I don't show rapid progress and get on their level quickly, I'm going to be rejected from the club I just got into, which is not true. Neither of these things are true. Um, so it's just this nasty cycle you kind of get into as your network grows, because you start to play that game of comparison. You play this game of you're finally there. You have now loss aversion. You'll do and augment yourself to not lose the opportunity. When ironically, the thing that got you in the club was you being you, right? And so like these are lessons I've learned in hindsight. But the advice piece is just advice is always appreciated. But what I said in that post is like you are the ultimate filter for that advice. So allow everything to flow in, but like an air filter, only the useful stuff or the healthy stuff should come out. And not everyone's advice is gonna be a good thing that you should act on. Not to say, but you don't want to be blind to it, because maybe there is a good idea there. But generally people's advice is very surface level. Is like they take 5 minutes to get to know you and your story, and then they've got some genius idea that like I haven't already had. Like, oh, you should do underwear. Is maybe the example I gave in that article. Is like it's a good idea, but I'll give you 100 reasons why it's a bad idea also, because I've thought about it for years, right? And so like maybe I'll be wrong one day, and sure, I'm happy to be wrong, but like generally speaking, advice lacks nuance, it lacks context. And my friend Chris Sparling, Andrew's partner in Tiny, he has a really good thought on this, which I think I referenced in the article as well. He's like, when someone gives you advice, they're now expecting you to follow through on it, like I talked about. And if you don't do that, it creates this weird friction, this expectation that you follow through. Now they're bought into your process, and they're bought into you actually acting on that. Like their ego is now involved. Whereas that's not really helpful on both sides. And the best way to share advice is to share stories, because now there's no expectation that you actually act on what I told you to do. There's just this sharing of wisdom, which is incredibly valuable, which is what you could call advice. And the entrepreneur can take what is valuable from that and act on it and then see how it goes. But now there's not this weird social contract where I said, go do this, and you're like, oh, you know more than me, so I should probably go try this. And it just gets you diverted off focus. And maybe my idea was bad, right? Like I don't know anything about car detailing. like, I know a lot about business, but like, I'm not going to sit here and give you advice on like how you should run your business better. Like, I've got stories about how I scaled, and the one I shared with you earlier around like how I would think about expanding my business if I were you, with like, I would think about, you know, territory growth or business model line growth with like the lawn care or painting or whatever. That's how I would think about it. Maybe you get an idea. I don't give a shit if you do it, right? Like, it's not advice. Like, do what you're going to do, and I hope you do well. Um, Whereas someone else might be like, "Hey, Sam, you should franchise. I'm gonna connect you with my guy that does franchises. Like, let me know once you've talked to him." Now you're gonna be like, I don't like, I like Rob. I don't want to like. He gave me advice. He came on my podcast. I don't want to like just not do it. He's gonna be like, "What the hell, man?" So you're gonna go do it. Well, maybe it's not a good idea, right? Like, or maybe you're not ready, or maybe you just don't want to. And so that's just like that's a bad situation. Whereas like, I have no ego tied up in whatever you do now. But maybe you got a good idea.
Yeah, well, I think what you're saying here, it also ties into the point that you made earlier, where there's a lot of things that you kind of have to learn for yourself, like the proving people wrong, for example. Like, yeah, like someone will tell you, like proving people wrong won't make you happy. You hear that like everywhere online, but just hearing that from someone else, that won't make you truly realize it. And I feel like that won't make the motivation truly go away. It's like you got to pursue that desire, prove those people wrong, then realize that it didn't make you happy to actually then move on to the thing that's more healthy.
Yeah, I think it was Jim Carrey that said, "I wish everyone could be rich and famous to realize that it's not what everyone thinks it is, or it's not worth it." Like, but sitting here, everyone's like, "Yeah, but I'd love to try." You know, like being rich and famous would be kind of dope. But it does seem like a miserable life. You know, if you're the famous life, you can't do anything. You've got no freedom, no privacy. So it's like the grass is always greener. Things are always not as good as they seem. I just think, and sometimes it is proving people. It is fun proving people wrong, right? It's just not a good long-term strategy.
The last question that I like to ask every guest that comes on this podcast is, what do you want to do before you die? Like, what is maybe a big goal that you have or some experiences that you want to have? Like, what's on your bucket list?
It's not personal anymore. I think I want to see my kids be better than me. That's it. That would be success. Like, I think that's like my only. I would struggle to figure out how there would be anything greater than like, you have kids and you spend a life doing great things and hopefully trying to better yourself, and you can pass that on to them, and they're just a better version of you that can do even greater things, and then hopefully keep that going. And I think like, if I don't know, and maybe if everyone took that approach, like, the world, it'd be hard to see how the world got worse, right? Um, and so yeah, I mean, I've really got to that point. I've got a 5-year-old and I've got a 19-month-old, both boys, both hard driving. I can see a lot of myself in them, and I've done a lot of work over the last 20 years to kind of like mold myself, and more specifically the last couple of years. If I can just help them skip the line on a lot of that work, and then they can go on a path of getting even better and showing me things, and just being a better than I could ever be, which would be the goal. Dude, I think that'd be dope. Like, that'd be super cool. Yeah, that'd be really cool. So that's what success would look like. But by I die, hopefully I'm old enough. Hopefully I don't die soon. I think like I'm better than them right now. Like, straight up. You know, I can beat them in sports. My 5-year-old's pretty good at video games, but they've got a lot of lessons to them. They're very young. But hopefully I live a long enough life where they're adults that are functioning in society and they're doing great things, where I can say, "Hey, like, they're better than I ever was." Like, that would be cool.
Well, I had such a good time doing this podcast. Thank you so much for coming on. And where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm pretty active on most social platforms. Instagram's more personal, honestly, but like LinkedIn, X, Twitter, Threads are kind of the main ones, and Substack. It's just at Rob Fraser with 2 B's. Middle name's a B. And you can find me. But yeah, I mean, LinkedIn's probably like the best go-to spot to find everything else. I publish all the long form there, the short form. It's where I'm pretty accessible in the DMs. Um, yeah, and then everything else is just check out Outway, outway.com.
Sure.
Buy some socks. Honestly, it'll make your life better. Seriously, they're fun, they're comfortable. But yeah, man, Sam, thanks for having me, man. It was super fun.
Yeah, well, thank you.